Beyond the reading of These Men Who Love Too Little, this is the fifth video 5. Some on top of our society grant to a secret the cause of their success. Yes, in a sense it is often those who belong to satanic secret sects who are at the top. Hence, this secret allows them to falsify the normal course of providence to get all what they see as the goodies for themselves and their families, whilst blocking anyone else who refuses to sell their souls to the devil and to become part of their evil sects. However, this is only what concerns success based on falsity and evil. As for real success and real providence, it truly exists, but it is quite different in nature. Spiritual growth shining through good actions, mainly when initiated through a good, benevolent motivation. I believe that what actually matters the most is the secret motivation of the hearts. Some publicize any little good action they do as their inner motivation is to use these to get there in the materialistic world they value the most. Others do their best to hide any huge good action they accomplish in the purpose to love, care for others, and grow spiritually instead. I had found through the years that it is very frequent for the first group to try to steal the show to the second group by falsely attributing to themselves the good actions others have done, or to undermine whatever others did, or twist things, or even accuse the genuine souls to be the only one noticed on the stage of the materialistic reality they co-create with their mates. To this usually sensitive, genuine souls choose to react with just leaving the scene, not fighting to justify themselves, and moving on to something else more useful instead. The majority of the time in the successful, in brackets, successful male business world, we find males undermining females. For instance, laughing at how bad drivers they are, how fat they are, etc., whilst boasting about the new, younger female conquest or the new sports cars, etc. They created a world where they need to undermine what they call the weaker sex, because they deeply know that whilst they rush to the vain goals of their self-centered egos, women are caring for humanity, and in fact are the one who make the whole world go round. Concerning the so-called Christians who have been humiliating women for decades, some nowadays order some of their female collaborators to go from stage to show they are not women haters. This is very sad to watch. It is essential for genuine churches and the male leaders to publicly repent and explain themselves to be believable. If not, one only sees them as opportunists. Fortunately, many genuine males do marry for love and with a honest intention to remain faithful and loyal to their wives to the end. Because they worked at becoming wise, grown-up individuals, they make wonderful husbands, very devoted, and these marriages tend to be the minority, which succeeds, provoking the envy of all. However, these males who love too little very rarely marry out of true love, precisely because they are incapable of love, since they don't bother to take time to know the real nature of universal love. So that if they marry, it is only to gratify their male ego. Very often they marry for money, social position, career, etc. Arranged marriages are still very alive in the West, and it is such hypocrisy to pretend that marriages here are out of love. Within the elite, more and more are aware that the majority are arranged marriages to keep the genes, the status, or the money. But even in more ordinary families, parents usually have a very strong idea who they want their children to marry, and very often men give in even more than women. For some it is also to have peace, I suppose. They don't want to lose their inheritance or to live at war with their families. Even when one is relatively free to marry according to one's heart, which is still the minority, such men also choose a wife, often plain and genuine, to be their maid, slave, mother of their children, with the conscious intent that they will have fun somewhere else, multiplying mistresses and affairs. In a sense, this copies the bad example of the elite, as it is seen as posh for males to entertain many mistresses. They seldom say that before trapping a poor naive girl into marrying them, and at the contrary, they deceive her, pretending to be in love forever, and faithful as well forever. This is a major cause of deep disagreements within marriages and divorce of the courageous women who will not accept such misleading betrayal. Of course, in this case, all blame is automatically jilted on the wife, who is characterized as mentally ill to possessive, with an unhealthy jealousy, etc. As we already saw, when it is a woman who betrays a man, his jealousy is seen as totally normal, to the point of making allowances for him to murder his wife. In such great disappointment, double standards, my friends, always and at every stage, double standards. As many older men tend to divorce their older wives for younger models, it also happens that when older, some of them fall truly in love with one of the younger models they chose. It is all well when the younger model is genuine and loving too, but in many cases, the younger model is multiplying affairs, and even though some get to know this, they are prepared to cope with the pain just for the sake of being with a younger woman. It is very sad, but these men seem to only love skin deep and seldom deeper. They are in fact attached to an empty plastic rather than truly in love from inside with the inner spiritual person inside the body. This is why some are totally comfortable nowadays to entertain torrid romances with robots or sex toys as long as the plastic looks young, harboring the sad vulgarity which is to them sexy. But as mentioned, fortunately, many men learn to cultivate their soul, their heart, rather than their ego, although sometimes seen as a minority, and then the lucky wife will be the one of the happiest woman. These men are the ones who develop their intuition and are in touch with their feminine side, so they can understand and feel their wives from inside their souls rather than only skin deep. Whatever their biological age, they are older souls grown spiritually and are looking to keep growing together hand in hand with their romantic soulmate forever and ever. We all know deep inside this is the true meaning of romantic love. Even those who are incapable to live and attain the truth of such wonderful meanings are also dreaming about it, but they easily rationalize that since they are a man after all, it's okay to give in their lust. Such common platitude and social agreement is quite funny and leads to agree that such males are the real descendants of the monkey. They can't control their basic instincts and are hermetic to the deep spiritual work of the heart energy. They only care about their banana, but what is so contradictory is that they pretend to be born leaders, made to rule over women and all the rest of us. As explained all over again, to be a leader, one needs to be in control of one's own feelings first and not give in to addiction so easily. Hence they are a total mockery, and the women who flattered them in this direction are the first ones to laugh in their back after they get a good slice of the cake they hold so tightly in their mouth. I feel that in fact all our social interactions are deep mockery led by so-called social rules which have nothing to do with truth and universal love. Many writers and good observers have before me stated that our society is made of actors wearing a mask on a stage. It is important for the new man and new woman to get out of all these lies and illusions and have the courage to learn to live through universal love. Without spiritual inner growth, universal loving is impossible. So it's always best to first learn to universal love and take action to grow spiritually to increase our chances to meet the right person. Sadly, even when doing all this, one can get misled so often and disappointed more than once. But at least one can say that one did all one could to put all the chances on one side. I don't condemn divorce when it happens after marrying with a true genuine motive, but getting betrayed by a dishonest partner or abused by such dishonest partner, since the relationship was never true and is only a big lie, one cannot call this marriage. Also at times some of us can marry with the best intentions but fail. Two honest people can fail at getting on or realize they are not fitting or are totally incompatible. I believe that each one of us has only one true romantic soulmate, and it is not only a right but a duty to find that precious soulmate to be whole. One has then the right to divorce and start again with the right partner, rather than living a lie. What is wrong is when one marries with a deceitful heart or divorces for any excuse because one doesn't want to give it a fair chance and make any effort to show sacrificial love. Also, the real issue with serial dumpers, males, is that the only reason they divorce is to marry a new younger model just to feed their addiction. And they keep on doing this, always pretending to be genuine and misleading their innocent partners, just because they think that as a male they can. This is a total fraud and a crime against women, hence a crime against humanity. One should not either find any excuse to forsake a partner because she or he are ill and in need of help. Universal loving is also about sacrificial loving, which is often needed in marriages. Even if one doubts such partner is their true soulmate, one should not forsake a genuine partner in need. It is a test. I believe a bit like Swedenborg that if we can't meet our true soulmate on this earth, we will meet the soulmate later, even after we leave our bodies and go to heaven. I believe that we need our true soulmate to be whole, but sometimes it is not given to us to reunite during our earthly lives. Maybe because we need to learn some qualities to be able to complete each other better. Sometimes, even when we marry our true soulmate, many tests on our way seem to make it impossible to truly enjoy the relationship as long as we are on earth. But I am sure we will when in heaven. For this reason, we need to remain together, rain or shine, as long as we are on earth, and then we will be ever so grateful we did. Swedenborg sees everything as marriage of love and wisdom. True marriage is of one man with one woman, since we only have one true romantic soulmate. We can have many soulmates, friends, but only one true romantic. True marriage is beautiful and requires total sexual faithfulness from both sides. In his writings about marriage and conjugal love, Swedenborg explains in details why sexual faithfulness is as essential from a male to a female than vice versa. He describes visions of swamps infected by alligators and snakes surrounding areas where males feel entitled to have many mistresses. By practicing lust and fornication, they are opening up to dark entities and infesting their homes with dangerous impurities, spiritual ones firstly, which can bring depression, financial ruin, etc., as well as physical illnesses to their whole family. Historically, many good wives died from sexual deadly diseases just because their husbands were having sex around with any other women, prostitutes included. Their children too become prisoners of such negative entities and inherit the sins of their fathers from generation to generation, with all the evil consequences and traumas linked to it. However, this is not the only reason why marriage means loyalty and sexual faithfulness from both sides, male and female. as the joy of pure marriage is the true joy of all heaven. There is something wonderful in keeping each other for each other. As to grow spiritually, one needs to overcome the ego and the lower self. One should not open any door to destructive addiction and ugly lack of self-control. Hell is all about adultery, fornication, and the hatred of marriage. This is why hellish creatures do their utmost to destroy marriages and to destroy families. One relies on the love of self or the ego, the other on the love of universal love, highest good. What is beautiful with Swedenborg eternal marriage is that true soulmates will remain married forever, even after leaving their bodies, and earth, as in heaven, they will be even happier reuniting forever in the exquisite and noble joy of true marriage, of love and wisdom. Although some of his views on women and men roles are not always mine, I really salute the beauty of his vision of marriage, which I share as well. Marriage being the noblest, purest, chaste union of souls and heart energy from two becoming one forever. Certainly there are differences between male and female, which are to be enjoyed through each one forgetting about oneself to learn from the other from inside, which is to learn to view the universe through the other unique perspective and angle. This is what true complementarity is, and this is why it produces such heavenly melodies. It is like listening and talking. When one listens, the other talks, and when one talks, the other listens. If not, we end up in a total cacophony and non-communication. So that marriage is to deny oneself for the loved ones, and since both do this, everyone is fulfilled. The alternation of positive and negative allows the deep inner meeting and fusion, which creates a new third beautiful creation through the marriage of love and wisdom, the fruit of life. This does not mean to me that women are meant to stay at home whilst men working outside. It is up to each individual and each couple to decide what they wish to do and freely find their unique identity. Some men might prefer to take care of the children and be homemakers, while some women might prefer to consecrate to their careers. It is not relevant who is doing what. What matters is for both of them to be blossomed and happy in their deepest identity, and to walk hand in hand in dignified equality, their eyes set on the noble highest goal. There is nothing more uplifting and blossoming than union of hearts and souls as one, through noble, loving marriage. This is why sadly Satanist agenda wishes to destroy and totally abolish marriage and families. However, false domineering marriage, where the male oppresses the female, crushing her personality, under his monstrous ego as described by some fanatic false Christian, is hell on earth. The sadness with the two main groups fighting each other is that they both represent the Queen of Heaven as a whole. The fanatic so-called Christians only mention the whore of Babylon and Jezebel as divine feminine role models to put women down and reduce them to tears and silence in the submission of the eternal male tyrant. As for their direct enemies who invert all the first group does or says, they only promote the whore. Whoever the whore or wicked queen sexy goddess is still a sex slave of male tyrannical egos. Ironically, in both clans, you keep meeting the odd couple, old men, younger and younger female, which is nowadays even pedophiles and underage girls. We have an example of how some of the elite part of such satanic sects have through the centuries lifted up female prostitutes in high positions because they were docile courtesans, sex slaves, and blocked anyone who refuses to sell their souls. This is why Providence has been and still is falsified. Then they blame those who don't succeed their way for refusing to sell their souls and bodies to them. But of course, praise to the real source divine, there is another way of succeeding than in this materialistic 3D world by precisely escaping it. It is important to remember the words of Christ asking us to die to this world and to resurrect to real life in Him. This world is not His world, since His kingdom is from another world, a world where everything is truly fair and not falsified. One can get, of course, very angry, and it is legitimate anger against injustice, but one must not dwell in this world to change it through violence. One must die to this world and help those who hate its unfairness to die to it too, so to resurrect to the better world in Christ, which is also called heaven. As Swedenborg wrote, heaven is often an attitude more than a place, an attitude which is precisely the opposite of the greedy, lusty, immature, tyrannical of these male egos who love too little. They love too little firstly themselves, sadly, as they don't choose to feed their souls with what is pure and truly uplifting, but with what is very low, vicious, and degrading. These males who can't be bothered to learn to love their only wife deeper than skin deep, refuse so to grow up spiritually, and by such refusal they cultivate the hell attitude, the hell state of mind, for themselves first and foremost. Although Catholics rightfully remark that the woman in Revelation with a crown of star, pregnant, persecuted by the beast, and protected by source divine, is not the whore, but the real queen of heaven, divine mother, feminine divine, the two other main groups remain deaf to this explanation. They both hate or worship only the whore in red riding the beast. How convenient to silence women's cause for a fair, dignified equality. The root of everything, dear friends, is spiritual. So as long as the real spiritual truth is hidden, defiled or twisted, then the battle is lost, and they know this. Hence, all these males claiming the divine feminine is back from their male angle when convenient to them, or putting front females, robots since young sex slaves are not much different from clones or robots totally brainwashed and mind controlled by themselves are only mocking the feminine divine in a most outrageous way. From a very long time, and it is still going on, women were considered like second-class citizens. It is also praise to the hard work and privations of their female partner. Many males succeeded to make some money, but as soon as they arrive there, they wish to share it with a selfish younger female instead, simply because she is what they see as good looking. So many male serial dumpers also disinherit their children from their first wives. Often the new young girl can't have children because she is anorexic, as she gambles everything on her appearance, or he is too old, but she makes sure to adopt children and to manipulate her older husband until she gets what she wants, which is to ostracize his first children from his first wife, so to inherit all with her own children, even if just adopted. So many dramas, pain, sufferings, suicides, crimes, etc. in this world, just because some selfish, immature, tyrannical male has chosen a few hours of physical pleasure above his ethical responsibilities. However, if the first wife and children say anything true to defend their rights, society comes at the rescue of this poor, good male who has been such a good husband and good father, they say. Yes, what strangers say about a male is more heard by courts than what his own family, who lived with him every day for years, have to say in their defense. When it is about a celebrity, the media comes immediately to save the male who by now became a victim, proving what a good man he is and what we should not be too fast to judge him because he has been beating up his first wife, leaving his children without any financial help to survive, etc. Because in reality, it's all the fault of his wife. Whatever poor male does, he is always provoked. Yes, once again, some are right when they say such men come straight from chimpanzees. They are not able to control, to grow up spiritually, or to take any pressure without grossly overreacting by butchering all their family just because a few words spark anger of poor male chimpanzee. Far too much for him. He is a man after all. One does not speak to a man this way. One has to be very careful what to say, even if he is in the process of strangling you. You must always be very careful with the choice of your words because he is a man. Also, a man has needs. Pee pee, caca, sex, eating, binging, etc. And he has to go when he has to go. Yes, every chimpanzee does that. When you have to go, you have to go. However, females must be a lot more careful, hence a lot more polished, and learn about delayed satisfaction of legitimate needs at times if they don't wish to get killed. They are not supposed to eat enough, they have to starve to look skinny, although feminine natural morphology is to be curvy, as multiple natural pockets of fats arise at some strategic places of her body because of her natural cycles as a woman and her natural function of giving birth, milk to the baby, etc. She must now, at every occasion, and even when pregnant, avoid even the baby bump, or at least make sure to get rid of it fast. Such males tend to feel threatened by healthy ladies, hence they demand ladies to starve themselves to death if necessary, so they are all small and fragile and submissive, not to threaten the huge male ego. What? It's okay for a male even to be obese, old and wrinkly. It's fine. He's a man, so he can. Females must also shut up, hence they have learned to pray efficiently because they understood from a long time that if they are going to get any help, it won't be from this corrupt society, all bending backwards, forwards in front of chimpanzee in chief. So that one can say females usually come from heaven and are usually spiritual creatures rather than animal ones. But if an abusive male is left by his wife to protect her life and the one of her children, it's okay for him to stalk them for months, years, come and beat them up, and even end up killing them to prevent them from moving on or enjoying a new life. The French lawyer of a French male murderer of his wife built his defense around the motto, she needed a real male to teach her. There are some wonderful men who do all they can to love their wives, partners and children. They self-sacrifice and show a lot of kindness to all. Unfortunately, many of them are also badly treated by the big male egos who only know violence, power, lust, greed. At times, they are not appreciated by their own wives. Some women are also greedy, ambitious, and are looking for taking advantage of any possibility to go up the social ladder by using their charm. To a younger girl managing to hook an older rich man, his children from his first wife should be dead. They want the whole package on their own and have no hesitation to discredit and walk over his past family to get there. One could say a senior male who doesn't hesitate dumping his loyal wife and children for a young slut got what he deserves. Some people end up together because they deserve each other. However, the whole family usually suffers because of such individuals. But society is hypocritical, and they will keep flattering the new couple front while mocking them back. The two main groups fighting against each other are not the only ones, as there are many gradations, many groups who hate each other and wish to prove how wrong the other is. Listening to John Lamlash Gnosticism and mythology is a good example. When listening with a neutral ear, the arguments such groups have against each other, one can see many things in common between them, and some deep truth in both groups at war. However, what blinds them, preventing them to see this, is their hatred against each other and their fight for power. I don't want anyone to call my ideas or spiritual discoveries a movement, a system, or else. I revendicate to remain a free, neutral spirit. I'm just an observer looking for the real truth. Some Gnostics call Sophia something very different than how I see Sophia or the Divine Feminine. As well, I don't think anyone has a right to pretend to have the monopoly on how one should receive a spiritual vision or revelation. As explained to each individual, the truth is revealed in a different way. There are as many ways to the real truth than rays of the sun. Why try to always put people in box? To boast maybe I am the only one who got it right? I revindicate the right to put the own original meaning I received through spiritual revelation to symbols, changing completely if needed the meaning so and so or X group has until now given to it. I wish to look at everything in newness of heart, with fresh eyes. I revindicate not to belong to any group. I also revindicate, I respect, I am grateful for every individual, every group, unique revelation, because through our differences we get richer and we learn from each other. Each one sees things through their unique angle. I don't believe that any human being can reach out to a total objectivity. I believe that through universal love, we aim at reaching out to the most universal objective revelation and vision. However, let's remain humble and agree that we are each one unique, hence limited, so that we can only reach out to universal ideas through a particular angle. With many Gnostics, I agree that the idea of an only male God does not sound right and that it has caused a lot of pain and injustice to our world. Also, the idea of eliminating others physically, as many Christian crusaders did and still do today, is incompatible with the loving and non-violent teachings of Christ. On the other side, I agree that there is a good and an evil existing out of each one of us. I don't skip the part of responsibility in our choices, but I don't believe human beings are the only ones on the planet or the center of the world or God. There is a divine spark inside each human being, but there is a God source divine out of each one of us who does not need us to exist while we were giving life through divine source male and female. However, I disagree with the wrong interpretation of good and evil the Gnostics accuse Christians to have. I believe that it is because they misunderstand the feminine principle of grace. Grace is a feminine principle which is giving all for free. We are first given life for free without having had the chance to do anything to prove we deserve it. It is a free gift. So is new spiritual birth, which is given for free to all and not based on any deserving or obeying any law. Accepting this new birth through the life of resurrection creates precisely this third way, which is life by the Holy Spirit, and which precisely takes us out of duality. Hence, if some Gnostics and some Christians would sit honestly to talk without trying to find bias arguments to prove the other group is wrong and be seen as the only one to be right, they might find out, in fact, they agree on many things, but they just call it different names or got the same revelation through a different path to it. I also wish to say I disagree with the Christian systematization of rejecting everything different than the basic Christian theology and seeing the devil everywhere else. As I have been explaining many times, There is room for everybody through universal love. The eyes of universal love are not here to judge, condemn, eliminate. If we are truly honest in looking for the real truth, there is no place for elimination, since everything is interesting and helps us to get a more complete whole vision. Of course, all members of any group looking for the higher good and identifying universal love with highest good will reject evil and evil action, attitude, etc. It is not the individual or the group which is to be judged or condemned, but their choices, attitudes, motivations, actions, etc. The individual can change and evolve and grow in a better direction, but the only right one has to cut a relationship or ask the human justice to put aside any individual is when that individual chooses to become aggressive and to impose evil actions such as crimes, etc., to another human being. Pretending that evil and good does not exist is an illusion. Good and evil are a reality, and every day we choose between the two. However, we should not live prisoners of such duality. In Christian terms, we can't live under the law because we are unable to accomplish all the law by ourselves, and this is only by comparing to such absolute highest good law that we can see ourselves as sinners. So that we need grace to get out of such duality between our ego, which can't always make the right choice, and our higher self, which wants to make the right choice. Living through grace, through the Holy Spirit, through the resurrection life, is the only way to escape duality. Also, the serpent, the dragon, is always praised by some Gnostics as some were worshipping the god dragon and serpent. Pistis Sophia shows that some of these spirits of dragons, serpents, cats, dogs, etc. are actually inferior archons who are enslaving individuals to lower and sometimes very heavy levels. The real source divine is not animal or human, but a spiritual being of light and universal love in essence. Predatory alien presence Draco and reptilians are also described in Nag Hammadi text. The brilliant studies and presentation of Davy Geik are demonstrating these were present from the beginning of human history. We live in a very cliquey world where unfair discriminations based on elitism or group favoritism occur all the time. Elites, pressure groups, religious institutions, etc., etc., are continually practicing discriminations. I don't think anyone has any illusion remaining that we live in a fair world where divine providence only is in charge. All is continually falsified through some leaders pushing their little protégés, not because of fair criteria, but the majority of the time simply because these sold their souls to the system or diktat. We are all aware of what has been and is still happening in the music industry, film industry, etc., etc., in Hollywood, for instance. But it would be a false statement and very naive to believe that this is only limited to these so-called Illuminati organizations. Any even so-called Christian churches who claim to be the enemies of the Illuminatis are practicing this unfair, selective, and cliquey behavior. The West has been continually boasting that we practice human rights, whilst other countries, seen as backwards, are not. Sorry, dear friends, we have no lesson to teach them. Although in surface we pretend to be tolerant and against racism. Racism is alive and kicking by behind, which is far worse because such hypocrisy and dissimulation makes it a lot more difficult to spot and fight racism and human rights violations. This is the one reason why religion and secular world should not mix. I am a supporter of the separation of powers. Religion and politics or state power should not mix to at least make such practices a bit more difficult. We all know from a quick historical review what hell it has been to live under regimes where so-called Christianism, for instance, was in power and where you could be burnt at the stakes at the first line one could write, which would arbitrarily offend popes. We think we live in such power partition and in a secular world, but it is not truly the case. Many think that bloody revolutions worked and got rid of monarchy and all elitism. However, it is clear that the elite is still in power, regardless of individuals voting or not, and that many work towards a one world order and a one world religion to make such control complete. Such deviation of the male ego, as we can see, does not damage only females, but the whole planet.